As we've mentioned in the previous sessions, in some applications, the number of the modules that we want to install on the rack is quite a few, and so we can't install all of them on the rack, so we need to use another rack aside from the main rack in these situations. For instance, in S7-300 PLCs, the total number of the modules that we can install on a rack is 11. However, if the number of the modules exceeds 11, then we need to use an expansion rack. As we've said before, we need to connect the modules together through a bus connector on the main rack so they can exchange data with the CPU. This means that the bus connector connects the CPU to the rest of the modules, and by doing so, the CPU is able to be connected to the other modules and sends the necessary control commands to them. But the question here is, how can we connect the CPU to the modules that are installed on the expansion rack so the CPU would be able to exchange data with them as well? To do so, we can use a module called Interface Module. This module connects the CPU and the modules on the expansion rack together. So how does this thing work? In order to exchange data between the CPU and the expansion rack modules, we need two IMs, also known as Interface Module. We first need to install the first IM on the main rack, and then install the second IM on the expansion rack, and then we have to connect these IMs together via a cable. Doing so, the data of the modules that are installed on the expansion rack gets transferred to the second IM that's installed on the expansion rack, and then through this cable, this data gets transferred to the first IM that's installed on the main rack, and hence, the data gets transferred to the CPU eventually. Therefore, in here, we have connected the modules on the expansion rack to the CPU by means of two IMs, so that the CPU can transfer data with them. Now, if the number of modules that we intend to install on the rack is even more, we can use another expansion rack and install our modules on it. Then we can connect them to the IM on the second rack by using another IM and a cable. Note that we can have maximum of 3 expansion racks on an S7-300 PLC.